Sheryl Swoopes, see you later. Cindy Brunson, see you later. I don't want everybody to get too carried away with some of the changes that we have seen so far this offseason, but this is a step in the right direction.
It looks like Caitlin Clark's battles off the court just got a little bit easier. Two notorious members of the Caitlin Clark Haters Club, Sheryl Swoopes and Cindy Brunson, will not be returning to WNBA broadcasts this season. Caitlin's fans couldn't be happier because, well, just wait for some of the things these two have said about Caitlin, the Fever, and the fans. And also, these moves might be connected to everything else we've seen unfolding in the WNBA recently. It's almost like the WNBA is finally starting to wake up and recognize they've been fumbling their generational superstar and how she's been treated. Let's break down exactly what's going on. But first, smash that like button to wave goodbye to Cindy and Cheryl, and subscribe right now for more Caitlin Clark and Indiana Fever updates.
And one thing we've been working hard on in the offseason is a comprehensive platform around a multidimensional approach to combating hate and vitriol in the forms experienced by our players, teams, staff, and fans.
So when I first watched this clip of the WNBA commissioner, my immediate thought was, does that include the hate constantly being directed at Caitlin Clark? You know, the player who has single-handedly transformed the WNBA and elevated the profile of women's basketball like never before. The player who has literally done everything right on the court, who consistently and genuinely credits the legends and trailblazers who came before her, who handles herself with humility, class, and grace off the court. Yet somehow, whenever Caitlin Clark's name comes up in the media, there always seems to be someone eager to complain that she doesn't deserve the spotlight, or that her fans, yes, the same fans who have literally packed arenas across the country, causing teams to move games into NBA-sized venues just to accommodate demand, are somehow problematic or awful people.
And that's the worst part of all this. The new fans are sucking the f***ing life out of the WNBA right now.
Yeah, really smart move. Spitting on the very fans who are literally saving your league. But I suppose jealousy is one hell of a drug. Many in the old guard simply cannot stand that Caitlin Clark is the one capturing all the attention. They ignore the records she's shattered, dismiss her Einstein-level basketball IQ, overlook her leadership and marketability, and jump straight to the lowest, cheapest possible reason for her popularity: her color. I'm not even going to replay those clips, because frankly, you've already seen enough of them. But here's the thing. Despite all of the jealousy, bitterness, and negativity, Caitlin's unwavering poise and humility have given the WNBA more hype, excitement, and growth potential than it has ever experienced, and 2025 is shaping up to be absolutely historic. This is the moment the WNBA has dreamed about, the moment to finally break through into mainstream sports culture. But let's be clear, to reach that goal, the league desperately needs Caitlin's fans. The absolute last thing the WNBA should ever want is for those passionate new fans, the ones packing arenas and driving record ratings, to tune out because they're tired of being insulted, labeled unfairly, or seeing their favorite player constantly undermined by the media. And with that backdrop, let's dive into the huge news that has the entire league buzzing.
Members of the media, the WNBA media, looks like they're taking big fat L's today. Particularly one, Sheryl Swoopes. That's right.
Sheryl Swoopes just took a double L. Recently, the Dallas Wings officially announced their broadcast team for the upcoming season, and Sheryl Swoopes was noticeably nowhere to be found.
The Dallas Wings broadcast team, we got Ron Thulin, Fran Harris, who used to be part of this announced team. Yes, Sheryl Swoopes.
Now, if you remember back to last season, Cheryl was part of the Wings broadcast team and famously wasn't present for their September 1st game against the Indiana Fever. At the time, Cheryl quickly explained away her absence, claiming it was simply a contractual matter. But that explanation raised more than a few eyebrows, considering how just one game earlier, she went completely silent on the broadcast the very moment Caitlin Clark was announced as Player of the Week.
Got to go to the Players of the Week. Both of them had outstanding weeks, and they're the next two opponents to the Wings. Caitlin Clark will be here on Sunday for the week, averaged 25, and Avisa Collier averaged over 25. And, of course, the Lynx here Friday at 6:30 on ION. And then the Fever come here at 3 o'clock before a sellout crowd.
Even when Cheryl's not explicitly mentioning Caitlin Clark, she's somehow still making a statement about Caitlin Clark. Look, I'm not going to break down every single thing Sheryl's ever said about Caitlyn. There literally aren't enough hours in the day. But let's just say she's dropped some real whoppers.
Sheryl Swoopes, one of the OGs of the WNBA, and when you look at her or hear her talk, you understand why the WNBA never took off during Sheryl Swoopes' time. She was one of the OGs. If she was one of the stars, it was unlikable and unwatchable, and it still is. And she still is.
Has Sheryl even given Caitlyn credit? Yes, on occasion. A broken clock is right twice a day. But let's be real, far more often, Sheryl has seemed to go out of her way to either question Caitlyn's performances, downplay her accomplishments, or subtly dismiss the enormous impact she's made on the game.
Now, she made news last week when she sat up there and was applauding Indiana Fever players, but then forgot to mention Caitlin Clark. Everywhere you turn, Indiana Fever is breaking records. All Sheryl Swoopes did was validate all the speculation that there's folks hating on Caitlin Clark. That's all she did.
The constant subtle and not so subtle shots from Sheryl definitely got under the skin of Caitlin Clark's fans, which explains why those fans were celebrating yet again when it was quietly announced that Sheryl Swoopes would no longer be hosting the WNBA's Queen of the Court podcast, a podcast that, interestingly enough, has now been completely rebranded.
The WNBA listened to the new fans, looked at the facts, and acted accordingly. And we all know this was a Caitlin Clark hate fest last year, right? I mean, seriously. And there they are. That's the old cover for the podcast. And this is the new one. This is the Women's Hoop Show with Jordan Robinson and friends.
That's right. The podcast previously known as Queen of the Court has just been quietly rebranded as the Women's Hoops Show, and Sheryl Swoopes, whose name is literally still showing up in the Google description as the host, is now suddenly nowhere to be found. That makes two major WNBA productions, the Dallas Wings broadcasts and this high-profile league podcast, that have moved on without Sheryl Swoopes. Very interesting indeed. And if you thought this was just smoke without fire, well, here come the flames. Fellow broadcaster, close buddy of Sheryl, and well-known Caitlyn critic Cindy Brunson is also suddenly job hunting. The Phoenix Mercury recently announced their broadcast team for the upcoming season, and guess who wasn't included? Cindy. And as you might expect, Caitlyn's fans are absolutely rejoicing at this news, because Cindy had repeatedly been one of Caitlin Clark's loudest critics.
She showed up to a Caitlin Clark game wearing Sheryl Swoopes shoes. Like, she is as big, like, even looking back on it, she is as big of a Caitlin Clark hater as there's been.
And Cindy didn't stop at just criticizing Caitlyn herself. She also directly went after the Indiana Fever organization, openly calling on people to put pressure on them because, in her opinion, Caitlin Clark wasn't doing enough for women of color. Here's what Cindy said. If Caitlyn isn't going to do the right thing, I think General Manager Lynn Dunn, head coach Stephanie White, other folks in that organization need to push back on the vitriol aimed particularly at black women and LGBTQI+ women. This lined up perfectly with what we've heard from several other media members who kept pushing the tired narrative that Caitlin Clark's fan base only cheers for her because of her color. It's a lazy, divisive take that completely ignores the reality. People cheer for Caitlyn because she's electrifying, entertaining, and a generational talent. She brings excitement every time she steps on the court, regardless of who's watching.
First of all, not all fans of Caitlin Clark are white. This is so apparent as a member of social media who interacts with a lot of Caitlin Clark fans, and so many of them are not white. It's just insulting to assume that that's the case to the people that aren't white, to the black Americans that do love Caitlin Clark.
There are tons of fans, black, Asian, Latino, and everything in between, who absolutely love Caitlin Clark's game. She's not just a sensation in one corner of the country, she's an inspiration to kids from all walks of life. Her reach isn't limited to a region or demographic. It's global. She's not some niche star riding a wave of local favoritism. People admire her from Des Moines to Dubai. Her appeal crosses lines of race, age, gender, and geography. It's not about identity, it's about excellence. That's why the narrative that her popularity is purely about her race is so frustrating and honestly insulting. So you really have to ask, is the WNBA finally starting to recognize that? With these recent shakeups behind the scenes, it sure feels like something is shifting. Maybe, just maybe, the league is ready to embrace its biggest star the way fans already have.
I'm not going to act like, I'm not even going to halfway pretend that we're not fed up with it. The nation is fed up with it.
You see, it's one thing to critique a player's performance or decisions on the court. That comes with the territory. But it's a whole different story when the conversation shifts into pushing narratives that disparage the very fans who are fueling the league's rise. Because let's be real, right now, the WNBA is standing on the edge of something truly special. The momentum is real. The buzz is louder than it's ever been. And that's thanks in large part to a wave of passionate, engaged fans, many of whom showed up because of Caitlin Clark.
A big change. You know, we used to play in a barn. Like, we used to play in a barn with 6 fans. Now we're going to be playing in sold-out arenas, and people are moving arenas to watch us play. Like, it's just going to be huge for us this year.
You don't miss the barn?
I don't miss the barn.
Record-breaking viewership, record-breaking attendance, record-breaking merch sales. Let's not forget, Caitlin Clark's jersey is the second best-selling jersey in the entire NBA store. Not the WNBA, the NBA. She's outselling LeBron James. Think about that. She's got 41 out of 44 games being nationally broadcast. That's more than any other player or team, period. And ESPN? They're airing a preseason game. Yes, a preseason WNBA game, one that sold 15,000 tickets in minutes. That kind of demand? We've never seen it before.
And set records for digital consumption and merchandise sales last year. That is all Caitlin Clark. But the WNBA last year, bless their hearts, finally got a star. And they didn't know that. They couldn't figure it out. Well, we don't want to put too much Caitlin Clark on. Nope, every game. More Caitlin Clark all the time, always. Caitlin Clark is easily the most influential athlete in a team sport since Michael Jordan.
It's totally understandable that players feel a sense of jealousy. Everyone in professional sports wants to be the one, the face of the league, the headline maker, the jersey everyone's wearing. And it's also fair that the WNBA, as a league, needs to market more than one player. It can't all rest on one set of shoulders forever. Building up multiple stars is key to long-term sustainability. But here's where the line gets crossed. You don't build up the league by tearing down the person who's actively driving its growth. Caitlin Clark has brought more attention, more fans, and more money into the WNBA than anyone in recent memory. Diminishing her, disrespecting her fans, or constantly nitpicking her impact isn't just bad optics, it's bad business.
I do think that from some of the stuff that they were posting on social media, like, it's not the greatest look. It's not the greatest look employing a person, employing someone who says the stuff that they said. And what, by the way, like, Sheryl Swoopes just kind of lied about Caitlin Clark. Cindy Brunson went into a Twitter space and said some, like, really not good things.
So that begs the question, going back to that earlier clip of WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, is this part of a new directive from the league's leadership? A quiet shift to finally stop dunking on the new fans who are driving all this growth? There are a few ways to look at it.
The last thing they want, heading into the new CBA negotiations, is the face of the league and her fan base pissed off beyond the moon. That's the last thing these people want.
And then you've got others who think this order is coming from above the WNBA.
The NBA, and by default, trickling down, as in Adam Silver probably called Kathy Engelbert and said, you know what we're going to do here? We're not going to have all this hating on the player I did a video on earlier, the women's player, the female player that is second in NBA jersey sales.
Both are interesting takes, and honestly, either could be true to some extent. Yes, the NBA is a major investor in the WNBA. They've been propping the league up for years, and they definitely don't want anything threatening that investment, especially now when the WNBA is finally on the cusp of turning a profit after nearly 3 decades. This is a pivotal moment, and anything that risks derailing that momentum is going to get attention at the highest levels. But at the end of the day, here's what it really comes down to. As a league, you can absolutely have broadcasters who are homers for their teams. That's part of the charm. Fans love when announcers have a little bias, when they ride or die for the home team while still providing somewhat objective commentary. It builds loyalty. It feels local. it's relatable. And as a league, you want people talking. You want arguments on social media, debates on ESPN, viral clips, hot takes, critiques. It's all part of being in the entertainment business. Athletes know that when they step onto the court, they're fair game for sports talk, criticism, and praise. That's just how it works. It's not personal, it's the price of relevance. And hey, First Amendment, we get it. People can say what they want. But here's the flip side. Just because you can say something doesn't mean there won't be blowback, especially when your paycheck is tied to an organization with a vested interest in growth, optics, and sponsorships. The WNBA and its teams are businesses. They're partners in a revenue-generating enterprise, and right now, their best shot at scaling that revenue is Caitlin Clark. She's bringing in millions of new fans, generating record viewership, selling out arenas, and driving unprecedented engagement across all platforms. So if you're a broadcaster, commentator, or official league voice, and you're publicly bashing your biggest draw, your literal meal ticket, don't be shocked when the league decides you're no longer an asset. Because at that point, it's not about freedom of speech, it's about business. And no smart business burns the bridge that's leading them to the bank.
It's not good seeing people lose their jobs. However, if you're going against who is the biggest draw in the league, who is the biggest name in the league, as an employee of a team of the league, it's not going to work out well for you. Just like the podcast that Sheryl Swoopes is on is now the other host. Yeah, Sheryl Swoopes is still on a podcast, but no longer the one that's being promoted by the WNBA itself.
And you can definitely sense a bit of a tone shift happening among the old guard. First, we saw several veteran players, many of whom have been around the league for a while and have championship resumes, choose to join the Fever this offseason. That includes names like DeWanna Bonner and Sydney Colson. These are respected vets who could have gone anywhere, and they picked Indiana. That speaks volumes. Then came the real shocker, Sheryl Swoopes. Yes, the same Sheryl who's made headlines for her repeated criticism of Caitlin Clark, stunned everyone by suddenly offering praise for both Caitlin and the Indiana Fever. It was a 180 no one saw coming.
The team that I feel made the biggest moves, maybe even the best moves, that would be the Indiana Fever. How much stronger Caitlin got in the offseason. You know, she was in the gym working on her game. This Indiana Fever team, they have put the pieces together in this offseason, and I'm excited to see what they're going to do.
Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, Lisa Leslie, Cheryl Miller, some of the most iconic names in the history of the game, have all been incredibly complimentary of Caitlin Clark this offseason. Cheryl, in particular, didn't hold back. They essentially told the jealous players to back off and recognize the moment.
With that being said, you big dummies, you getting paid now.
Right.
Everybody now has an opportunity to pull up their chair and have a seat.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only thing.
You know the saying, don't bite the hand that feeds you? Well, in the WNBA right now, everyone knows who that hand is, and her name is Caitlin Clark. All the WNBA teams know it. That's why they've moved their home games against the Fever to NBA arenas, to accommodate the massive demand to see her play. The broadcasters know it. That's why 41 of the Fever's 44 games are being nationally televised. Oh, and let's not forget, they're even airing a preseason game. That's unheard of. The NBA brass knows it. They invited Caitlin to take part in the All-Star three-point contest. She respectfully declined to focus on the WNBA's All-Star weekend. Classic Caitlin move. Even the players know it. Nafisa Collier and Brianna Stewart offered Caitlin $1 million to play in Unrivaled because they understood that her presence could elevate their league to a whole new level. So you have to wonder, has WNBA leadership, without making an official statement or sending out some internal memo, quietly started signaling, lay off Caitlin and her fans? Because look around. They can't control what Sheryl Swoopes says when she pops up on Gil's Arena or any other podcast, but the message seems clear. Sheryl used to be on WNBA broadcasts and hosted their podcast. Now, she's not. Same goes for Cindy Brunson. She's a free agent now. She can tweet what she wants, but she's not calling Mercury games anymore. And yeah, we're still seeing garbage takes in parts of the media, but it feels like at the league and ownership level, the WNBA might finally be getting it. They're starting to realize that constantly dragging Caitlin and disrespecting her fan base, the very fans filling arenas and breaking viewership records, is a fast track to alienating the people who are actually growing the league. And honestly, from a business standpoint, it's the right move. If you're still here, drop a basketball emoji in the comments to say hi. Thanks for watching.